The courtroom fell silent, not out of respect but out of shock as Queen Elizabeth's sealed will was opened. The air turned heavy inside, a truth no one expected, a twist the palace never wanted revealed, and at the center of it all Kate Middleton, poised, elegant, and now crumbling. She left her private state to Princess, and the magistrate announced. Gasps followed. Kate clutched William's hand, visibly shaken. But it wasn't over. Jewels reserved for future Queen Consort shall go to Meghan Markle. That was the moment Kate's mask shattered. Tess whirled the courtroom, watched in disbelief a woman once seen as the future queen, now learning she was never truly the chosen one. What did the Queen really think of Kate? Why was Meghan named in her final testament? And how will this shake the very foundation of the royal family? This isn't just a story about a will, it's a reckoning, a royal unraveling. Stay tuned, because what happens next may change the future of the monarchy forever. Courtroom tension. The room is silent, not the quiet of calm, but the silence that comes when everyone knows something big is about to drop. A dusty envelope is opened, the seal of Queen Elizabeth still crisp across the flap. As the magistrate pulls out the document, the court leans in. You could hear a pin drop. The first words hit like a thunderclap. Her Majesty's private state is to be left to Princess Anne. There's a sharp inhale. Eyes shoot toward Kate Middleton. She's gripping Prince William's hand with white knuckles. Her lips part, but no words come. The world expected her name, not ends. After all, isn't Kate the future queen? Whispers ripple through the courtroom like a storm picking up speed. Kate's expression freezes, shock, disbelief, maybe even betrayal, and sits still. Eyes wide but unreadable, and just like that, decades of royal assumptions begin to crack. But the drama isn't over. The magistrate clears his throat and glances back at the envelope. There's more, he says, and suddenly everyone realizes this was only the beginning. If the Queen's estate going to Princess Anne was a shock, what came next nearly stopped the courtroom cold. Just when people thought the biggest reveal was out, the real bombshell dropped. And this time it hit right at the heart of Kate's identity. The jewels, the title, the future role she believed was hers. And the name that followed, not hers, not even close. Jewels for Meghan. The magistrate continues now with a subtle tremor in his voice. Jewels reserved for future Queen Consort shall go to Meghan Markle. Silence. Then gasps. Loud, confused, undeniable gasps. Even seasoned reporters blink in disbelief. The courtroom is stunned. Kate doesn't move at first, then her eyes shift left, then right, trying to understand what she just heard. She had been publicly positioned as the next Queen Consort for over a decade. The late Queen's favorite. The safe choice. And yet the Queen's most personal possessions, not hers to inherit. Inside, it must have felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Kate's face cracks subtly at first, her mouth twitches, her eyes glisten. She's trying to hold back, but the emotional flood is too strong. Her hand slips from William's, a single tear traces her cheek. Around her, the gallery stares. Some are murmuring, some simply stare. It's not about the jewels, it's about what the gesture means. This was the Queen's last private message. And it's loud and clear. She saw something in Meghan, something Kate thought was hers alone. As Kate's tears begin to fall, memories begin to resurface. This wasn't just about inheritance, it was about identity. About the promises she believed had been made, but nothing stings more than believing you were chosen only to learn you weren't. What happened next wasn't just a reaction, it was a floodgate of buried emotion breaking loose for the world to see. Kate's private agony. Flashback, Balmoral Castle, the Scottish retreat where the Queen found her peace. Kate is walking beside her, both women smiling in the soft Highland light. That day years ago. It had felt like a bond was forged, silent, understanding, trust, affection. Kate remembered that walk. She remembered the Queen's hand gently brushing hers. Back in court, her mind reels that moment had meant something, or at least she thought it had. But this letter, this final will, it paints a different picture. One where she wasn't the one chosen to carry the crown's future, but simply a trusted aide. A loyal one. Nothing more. The court. Then here's the Queen's final letter to the family. Kate is loyal, but the family must be healed, not divided. The words all read gently, but to Kate, they cut like glass. Loyal was that her title, now loyal. Replaceable, you can see it in her eyes. Heartbreak, not over property, not over jewels, but over meaning, over the idea that everything she'd carried, the image, the role, the sacrifice, might have been seen as simply strategic. Kate's grief wasn't loud. It didn't come with yelling or rage. It came in silence and a distant gaze. In the memory of promises she thought had been made, but as the past cracked open in front of her, so did another chapter, the expectations that had always weighed her down. And those expectations, they weren't just hers. They were built by a royal machine. Backstory: April 29, 2011. Millions watched as Kate Middleton walked down the aisle at Westminster Abbey. The world called it a fairy tale, but beneath the lace and diamonds was a woman entering a world of endless scrutiny. From the start, every step, smile, and sentence was examined. She wasn't just a bride, she was becoming an image, a symbol. The pressure started then, and it never stopped. What to wear, how to wave, who to befriend, who to avoid. Everything mattered, and mistakes weren't allowed. Behind the palace walls, the soft-spoken girl from Berkshire became the face of 1,000 expectations. But there's something the cameras didn't see: the fear, the anxiety, the silent health battles that no one talked about. Beneath her smiles was a woman learning how to be royal without losing herself. And eventually she faced something no headline predicted: ovarian cancer. Quietly, bravely, she started a private fight. So when the Queen's will was read and Kate was passed over, not just for inheritance, but for recognition, it wasn't just painful, it was personal. It told her that everything she gave maybe wasn't enough. Her story had been built on quiet strength, on showing up, on staying calm through storms. But as she sat in that courtroom, the storm came inside. And while the world may have believed Kate Middleton had it all, what she truly wanted was something the crown couldn't buy: respect, belonging. And now, with the will exposed, even that seemed to be slipping away. Cancer and crisis. March 2024. A soft video appears on screens across the world. No grand announcement, no palace statement. Kate sitting quietly on a wooden bench, her voice barely above a whisper. Following surgery, cancer was discovered, she says. It's simple. Raw, unfiltered. The world paused. The woman who had smiled through duty, through pressure, through years of headlines, was now asking for privacy, not for herself, but for her children. Or healing. Public duties stopped, royal engagements paused. Behind palace doors, Kate was in the fight of her life. She leaned on her family, not the royal family, but her own, her mother Carol, her sister Pippa, her children. They were her rock, the people who had loved her before tiaras and titles. And yet, even in the middle of chemotherapy and emotional exhaustion, she held the palace together in her own quiet way. So when the Queen's will was read in court, when Kate's name was bypassed, the blow wasn't just surprising, it was devastating. She wasn't just hearing it as a royal, she was hearing it as a daughter-in-law, a mother, a woman in recovery. In that courtroom, the tear that slid down her cheek wasn't from shock, it was from pain layered deep. Kate wasn't expecting the world to carry her, but she thought the crown she supported for over a decade would stand beside her. Instead, it felt like it turned its back. And as the courtroom echoed with old names and new loyalties, something inside her quietly broke. But her pain wasn't just for herself. It was for the legacy she thought she was building. A silent breakdown. This wasn't the first time Kate had faced pressure, but this time, she didn't have the energy to mascot. Sitting on the bench, she lowered her eyes, her body still. It wasn't a dramatic outburst. It was something heavier, quiet, aching grief. She didn't cry out, she didn't argue, she didn't whisper a word to William. She just sat, her shoulders slightly hunched, her hands folded tight. The silence around her was louder than any sob. It was the silence of someone who'd held back too much for too long. What the world didn't see was everything she'd sacrificed. She'd endured endless comparisons to Diana, constant pressure attacks, and relentless scrutiny. And still she had served with grace. Always the steady hand, always the calm smile. But the will changed something. It stripped away the illusion that loyalty guarantees legacy. The royal gallery watched her, some pitied, some were frozen, but in that moment it wasn't Kate, the Princess of Wales, sitting there. It was Catherine, the woman who had given her all, and was now being told through ink on a page that it wasn't enough. When grace goes unnoticed and loyalty is quietly dismissed, something shifts, not in headlines, but in hearts. And in that courtroom, Kate wasn't just reacting to a will she was unraveling, but while her breakdown was silent, its message was thunderous. And as eyes turned to William, the next layer of royal tension began to surface. William's silence. William hadn't moved, not when the estate was handed to Princess Anne, not when the Queen's jewels were passed to Meghan, not even when Kate began to weep. His silence stretched on, and people noticed. Some saw a man stunned, others saw a husband failing to protect. Inside royal circles, whispers began to grow. Did he know what the Queen's will said before today? Had he hidden the truth from Kate? And if he had, why? In the public eye, William had always been the steady one, the heir, the bridge between tradition and progress. But in that courtroom he looked anything but steady, his lips pressed thin, his hands clasped, his eyes fixed on nothing, as if hearing something he'd long feared. But the deeper question lingered. Was this just shock or guilt? Some close insiders hinted that William had been briefed months earlier, that palace lawyers had warned him of the estate's content. If that's true, then his silence isn't just cool. All it's complicit, and to Kate that silence might be the loudest betrayal of all. Royal marriage aren't just personal, they're symbolic, and William's silence in that moment of need spoke volumes. But while the future king remained speechless, someone else, it was already moving behind the scenes. The news of the will had reached Buckingham, and what happened next shook the very foundations of the palace. King Charles is panic. The moment the Queen's will hit the courtroom floor, calls were made to Buckingham Palace. Within minutes, King Charles was pulled from a private meeting, and according to insiders, his reaction was swift and furious. He slammed his hand on the table. "Oh, let this get out," he reportedly shouted. The Queen's private state wasn't supposed to go public, not like this. Not with cameras, not with commentary. But now the world knew, and the Crown looked exposed. Legal teams were summoned, public relations experts drafted immediate responses. The internal memo was chillingly blunt: damage control at any cost. For King Charles, this wasn't just about family embarrassment, it was about survival. The monarchy runs on illusion, on control, on silence. And the courtroom had just ripped all three away. He was especially furious at one thing: Meghan's name in the will. After years of tension, scandal, and distance, this reignited old wounds. Was his mother's secretly siding with the Suffixes? Was this her last word on the family feud? Whatever it was, King Charles knew one thing: it couldn't be undone. The will was out. The damage was done, and the cracks in the crown were now visible to the world. As King Charles scrambled to keep the palace together, another revelation was quietly making its way through royal corridors. Not about jewels, not about land, but about blood. Because in the shadow of the Queen's final words, another secret was coming to light, one that could change the monarchy's future forever. The mysterious daughter. The whispers started as rumors, a shadowy legal filing, a DNA report not meant for public view but now confirmed in court documents. The truth can't be ignored. Prince William has a daughter, a teenage girl born quietly far from royal eyes. And with her identity comes questions that no palace press statement can silence. Her mother once worked at St. Andrews University, the same place William and Kate. She wasn't famous, she didn't chase headlines, she stayed hidden far from flashing cameras. But now her name is being whispered in legal halls and palace back rooms, not because of scandal but because of blood. The DNA test confirms a 99.9% match to William. Forensic clarity. There's no ambiguity here. The girl is his, and now she's not asking for a crown, she's asking for recognition. A name, a place in the story that's always excluded. Her legal filings submitted on her behalf allege that her mother's quiet departure 2 decades ago wasn't by choice, it was orchestrated, managed, swept away. But secrets don't stay buried forever. And now, with a will opened and loyalties shifting, this revelation could change royal history. Just as the Queen's will crack the door on family division, this new revelation kicks it wide open. Because if the line of succession is about legacy, what happens when legacy takes human form and stands in the wings? The crown once hid its truth in shadow, but this daughter is stepping into the light. Palace cover-up or genuine concern? Within 90 minutes of the DNA results surfacing and legal documents, the palace scrambled into full lockdown. An emergency meeting was held. Senior aides called off events, lawyers fired off cease and desist letters to media. The royal playbook was clear: contain the fire before it spreads. But this time the fire had already left the walls. Social media erupted. TikTok detectives traced timelines, Twitter threads went viral, photos were dissected, clues unearthed. And yet official palace channels remained silent. Inside sources say hush money was discreetly offered to the young girl's legal team, but it was used. She's not asking for titles, a representative said, she's asking for truth. That refusal shocked the palace. They'd faced scandals before, affairs, divorces, even criminal accusations. But this one cut deeper because this was about the very bloodline the monarchy depends on. Then came the digital purge. Photos disappeared from royal pages. Old news articles were quietly scrubbed. Even Google search results began to shift, but rather than silence suspicion, it fueled it. What is the crown hiding? And more importantly, wait. In the royal world, silence often speaks louder than truth. And this silence is screaming, because the more the palace deletes, the more the public demands to see. The monarchy's greatest fear isn't a scandal, it's losing control of the story. And right now, the story is writing itself. Public outcry. If the royal institution thought they could weather this quietly, they were wrong. The moment Kate's tear-streaked face hit the cameras, the world responded. Social media exploded. Our church support Kate. Catherine strong. Hashtags turned into movements. TikTok flooded with tribute videos, clips of her smiling at sick children, comforting grieving families, standing with dignity beside William. Now those same clips played alongside courtroom footage juxtaposing grace with grief. Instagram reels painted her not as a duchess, but as a woman betrayed. News networks ran wall-to-wall coverage from London to Dubai, from New York to Sydney. The narrative shifted. Sympathy for Kate grew, but so did anger. She gave them everything one viral post read, and they gave her nothing back. The betrayal felt not just royal, it felt human. Comparisons to Princess Diana began circulating rapidly. The story of a woman who tried to serve only to be broken by the very family she supported. It was day of. But this time, the public vowed not to stay silent. Kate became more than a royal. She became a symbol of silent strength. The monarchy has always relied on control, on managed press, on protocol. But now the court of public opinion is speaking louder than any crown degree, and what they're saying is clear. Respect is earned, not inherited. As the world sides with Kate, the palace faces another reckoning, one that laws and silence can't stop. Line of succession. By ancient royal law, only legitimate heirs born within marriage can claim the throne. That means William's daughter, born before vows were exchanged, has no place in the official line. On paper, nothing changes. Prince George remains the future king. End of story. Right? Not quite, because paper doesn't control perception, and perception is everything. In an age of DNA tests and open records, blood matters. The public knows she's William's daughter, whether or not she's given a title. The emotional truth lingers. She is royal. She is part of the story. And leaving her out intentionally is beginning to feel cruel. There's talk of petitions of revised succession reform. Even Parliament murmurs have emerged about re-evaluating monarchy guidelines in modern times. Legal experts say it's unlikely but not impossible. And if this girl gains public sympathy, even an unofficial recognition could shake the foundation of royal order. For now, George remains heir. But there's a whisper running through Britain's streets. What if the daughter steps forward publicly? What if the people choose truth over protocol? Tradition has protected the crown for centuries. A modern truth is louder than royal ink. And this new truth isn't about claims, it's about justice. Because when the people see themselves in the pain of the forgotten, the crown can no longer look away. The line of succession is safe for now, but the questions are growing louder. Cliffhanger. Kate now stands at a crossroads. Beside her, William silent, distant. Behind her, the Queen's will, now public. Before her, an uncertain future. Will she stay, rebuild, forgive, or walk away, reclaim herself, and write a new chapter? William's silence continues to speak louder than any statement. Still, he finally stepped forward, admit what he knew, and defend the woman who stood beside him for decades. Or will tradition win over transparency? King Charles is watching, so is the world, and deep within the palace walls, aides are preparing for what may come next. Revised media strategy, emergency statements, potential royal reshuffles. But none of that can undo the one thing that now lives in public memory: the will that divided more than it united. And what of the mysterious daughter? Or truth now hangs in the balance. To the courts may close on her story is just beginning. The palace hoped silence would protect them, but now silence has broken everything in a single courtroom. Generations of loyalty, expectation, and tradition all turned upside down. Kate Middleton, once believed to be the heart of the future monarchy, was left stunned, betrayed, and broken by the Queen's final words. Her name wasn't on the jewels, her hand wasn't written into the estate. Instead, the legacy went to others. And the message, it was painfully clear: loyalty doesn't always guarantee legacy. As the dust settles, the public is asking hard questions. Why was Meghan chosen over Kate? Did the Queen doubt Kate's role in the future of the crown? And what does this mean for Prince William, who said silent through it all? This is no longer just a royal dispute. It's a story about trust, transparency, and the painful clash between public image and private truth. One thing is certain: this moment has changed how the world sees the Windsors. The veil has been